Hi everyone. Today's topic links your biology knowledge with real-world environmental and economic challenges. We're talking about invasive species. We're going to explore what invasive species are, why they're a serious issue, and how they're affecting ecosystems. By the end of the lesson, you'll be able to do three key things. 1. Describe what an invasive species is. 2. Explain its impacts on biodiversity and livelihoods. 3. Evaluate strategies used to control these species. To bring this topic to life, let's focus on a real case study, the water hyacinth, Icornia crassipes. This plant was introduced by accident in the 1980s and has since spread rapidly across parts of Lake Victoria. It floats on the surface of the water and forms dense, tangled mats that cover large areas of the lake. Now, it may seem like a harmless aquatic plant, but it's actually choking the lake. It's blocking sunlight, affecting fish populations, reducing oxygen levels, and making it difficult for boats to move or fish to breed. Scientists are working to understand not just the ecological impact, but also the economic damage to communities that depend on the lake. To guide our lesson, think about these three big questions. What makes the water hyacinth invasive? How does it affect biodiversity and local livelihoods? And how can we manage and control it effectively? Please note, not all foreign species are invasive. An exotic species is simply one that's introduced from another region, often by humans. Many exotic species fail to establish themselves because they can't cope with the new conditions or are outcompeted by native organisms. However, when an exotic species survives, thrives, and starts to cause harm to the environment, local species, the economy, or even human health, that's when it becomes invasive. So, invasive species are exotic organisms that spread aggressively and cause disruption in their new environments. Can anyone name an exotic species that's been introduced in your region, either accidentally or on purpose? Let's look at some real examples of invasive species water hyacinth, our main case study, Nile perch, introduced into Lake Victoria and wiped out hundreds of native fish species Lantana camara, a fast-growing shrub that overtakes farmland and forests, zebra mussels, invade freshwater lakes and damage infrastructure. Most of these spread because of human activity, through trade, agriculture, transport, or even misguided conservation efforts. What makes invasive species so successful? Why invasive species are so difficult to control? They tend to have several powerful traits that make them super invaders: rapid reproduction, fast growth dispersal by wind, water, animals, or human transport, lack of natural predators or diseases in the new area, high tolerance for different environmental conditions, competitive dominance over native species for space, light, and nutrients. The water hyacinth has all of these traits. It grows and reproduces quickly, floats freely, and spreads easily across freshwater surfaces. This directly answers exam question part A. Define invasive species and describe two features that allow the water hyacinth to spread. How do invasive species spread? So how do invasive species like the water hyacinth spread from one place to another? Agriculture, introduced for farming or livestock but escape. Transport, seeds or organisms hitchhike on ships, planes, or cargo. Failed biological control. For example, cats introduced to islands to control rats, which then preyed on birds. Deliberate introduction. The Nile perch was introduced to boost fish yield but damaged native ecosystems. Ornamental escapes. Plants like water hyacinth were used in ponds, then escaped into lakes. In almost every case, humans play a key role in their introduction and spread. When invasive species establish themselves, they often disrupt native biodiversity. They can outcompete native species for light, food, and space, alter food chains and ecosystem structure, introduce diseases to which native species have no resistance, hybridize with native species, reducing genetic diversity. For example, the water hyacinth blocks sunlight from reaching submerged aquatic plants. That limits photosynthesis and reduces oxygen levels in the water, harming fish and invertebrates. This addresses exam question part B. Explain how water hyacinth affects aquatic biodiversity. The impact doesn't stop at species level. Entire ecosystems are disrupted. Water hyacinth can disrupt nutrient cycles, change water flow and sedimentation, reduce oxygen levels, leading to dead zones, increase mosquito breeding grounds, raising disease risk. In Lake Victoria, it's harder for boats to move, fish populations decline, and water quality drops, which affects everything from agriculture to drinking water. This leads into exam question part C, link ecological impacts to economic and social effects. Economic consequences. Let's talk money, because the economic costs of invasive species are enormous. Invasive species can decrease productivity in fishing, farming, and forestry, damage boats, dams, and irrigation systems, reduce tourism and recreation, require expensive removal or control programs. In Lake Victoria, entire communities that rely on fishing have lost income because they can't access open water. Transport is disrupted, jobs are lost, food supplies drop. Have you seen an example where an invasive species affected farming, fishing, or business in your community? Now that we understand the problem, what can we do about it? Here are 5 key strategies. Prevention. Stop the introduction before it happens. Education, border control. Mechanical control. Cutting, harvesting, or removing the species by hand or machine chemical control, using herbicides or pesticides, fast but with environmental risks. Biological control, introducing predators or pathogens, cheap but may backfire. Restoration ecology, rebuilding natural ecosystems to outcompete the invader. There's no perfect solution. Each method has strengths and weaknesses. In exam question part D, for example, mechanical control gives quick results but is expensive and labor intensive. Biological control is cheaper, but the introduced predator could become invasive itself. Let's summarize what we've covered today. Invasive species are non-native organisms that cause environmental, economic, or health damage. They spread due to human activity and thrive because of traits like rapid growth and high dispersal. Water hyacinth affects biodiversity by blocking light and reducing oxygen. Invasive species damage ecosystems and human livelihoods.